Each year, the Montana Chamber hits the road for the Economic Update Series, providing a brief mid-year update on local, state, and national economies. This past summer, panels of entrepreneurs in each location joined the series to provide insight into their world. With a focus on making Montana home, check out our website and the enticing entrepreneurs. It is not surprising that the entrepreneurs participating in the series knocked it out of the ballpark. We have invited a few of them to join us here today to discuss their experiences as entrepreneurs here in Montana. Would you please join me in welcoming Eric Hathaway, Montana Chamber Board member with Zoot Enterprises, and our entrepreneurs. Eric?
Thank you, short guy. So thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having the panelists. This morning we're going to open up a discussion about entrepreneurship. And Montana is an interesting place. I'm actually a Bozeman native, spent about 12 years traveling around the world, business, and then came back and have been back for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've been involved in multiple businesses within the state and outside of the state. And entrepreneurship is difficult, period. It's hard to figure out what kind of business you're going to open up and then look at the market, figure out who your market is, how you're going to attach that market, and whether it's small business, if you're going to go local, national, global, etc. And Montana has additional challenges. And the fact that, number one, we've got 1 million people in the state. So sometimes that's not even a market. And so when you start a business in the state, that can be a challenge. With the digital economy and how things have progressed over the last 10 years, it's extremely easy for other businesses to come into the state and compete, not only on brick and mortar, but even from a digital perspective. And so we have a couple panelists with some agencies that's a problem. We have a panelist that owns a restaurant, a famous restaurant, interestingly enough, and competing in this state with a lot of the national firms that are coming in. So we've got the big boxes that we compete against. Digitally, we've got the Amazons of the world. But trying to compete in this state is difficult on that level. And then you move into the talent acquisition. And talent acquisition brings its own struggles. People don't move to the state of Montana to work. They don't say, I'm going to move to Montana because I want to work. They come here for a lifestyle. And so a lot of times we as business owners have to address that. I've got a very good friend who owns a construction company. Actually, the family owns kind of the whole supply chain from excavation all the way through. And it's always a funny story because in the middle of winter, if you get a foot of snow, you pretty much shut down your job sites. And you can't threaten your employees because everybody's job site shuts down because everybody goes skiing. And so you almost have to accept some of these dynamics and provide for that. And then not only the talent that's here, but trying to attract talent to compete on a national or global scale can be extremely difficult and expensive. So we're going to talk a little bit today about those 3 sort of main topics in entrepreneurship. First of all, I'd like to introduce the panel. We have a wonderful group, far better looking than myself, on stage. We have Lynn Ann Henderson, who is, sorry, I'm going to have to use some notes here, who is the president and CEO of Connexions. She has been the National Program Director for Health Rosetta Group. She was the EVP of Business Development for EBMS and currently serves on the advisory board of Montana State University, Billings College of Business, and the Billings Public Schools Health Advisory Committee. So welcome, Lynn Ann. We have Tara Beam. Tara, whatever you want. Both. Who is the owner of the Roadhouse Diner. So the Roadhouse Diner is an interesting little place up in Great Falls. We kind of have the whole swath of the state, by the way, from Missoula, Great Falls, and Bozeman. They received the best burger in Montana, yes, I believe. Yes. Top 25 best diners by Travel and Leisure magazine. And then Tara represented Great Falls and the Roadhouse Diner on the Food Network's Guys Grocery Games, I believe.
All those people who left, they are going to miss out. So you guys are in for a wild ride, okay?
And then we have Megan Armstrong Wold, who's the founder of Armstrong Marketing Solutions. which is a marketing and advertising agency based in Bozeman. Megan has worked for Moonlight Basin and the Bozeman Daily Chronicle prior to founding AMS. And Megan sits on the Montana Women's Business Center board for Prospera. I believe she has a knack for thinking like a customer, I believe. So one of the things that we wanted to do is try and make this a little bit more interactive. We lost a few people, but wanted to get an idea of the audience. So just by show of hands, I'm going to run through a few quick questions. How many of you have started or work with a startup or entrepreneur started business? Good. How many of you have struggled in those businesses trying to compete with some of the technological advances that we've had with businesses coming in, the Amazons of the world, et cetera, or some of the big box stores that have come in? That's interesting. How many of you have used partnerships? And what I mean by that, in a lot of businesses, real estate is a great example where we partner with a Prudential or another firm and pay agency fees or partnership fees or partner with other businesses outside. Okay. I'm going to ask size. So 5 to 20 employees. 20 to 50? 100 plus. Good. We got a pretty good spattering of people. So, and then last question. How many of you have found struggles either attracting or keeping talent that keeps you competitive in the state? Okay, great. So today we're going to start out and talk a little bit about the sort of entrance into entrepreneurship and talk a little bit about the challenges that we face. So when you decide, I think all three of our panelists today started businesses, and at one point they had to jump out of what they were doing and say, I'm going to start this business, I'm going to go into something new. So I wanted to ask the panelists today to talk a little bit about the initial challenge of saying, how did I address jumping into starting a new business? Did you know about the challenges with this new business? Because a lot of people just jump in and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and then they find out about that later. How many of you knew about those challenges? And maybe give us a little bit of perspective on a story of maybe a miss. And I'll let you guys decide who starts.
Megan, you're the customer.
Okay. Starting AMS. I started AMS 6 years ago, and it kind of came out of the fact that I was unhappy at my current job, wanting to do more in our business community in Bozeman in southwest Montana. And since then, that's grown to really a goal of doing a lot more for businesses in our part of the nation. So as we've been continuing to scale, starting from one person, and now we have upwards of 8 people. We're looking at hiring 3 more this year. So when you're looking at the growth, I think one of the biggest challenges that I didn't foresee was growing. I was just going to start this agency and see what happened. And now it's so much bigger than me, where I could leave AMS and it would continue to flourish and grow because of our team. So I think one of the cool things about starting a business was that it's such an adventure with so many learning opportunities and wins, but there's also losses and challenges. And I think the biggest challenge that I have encountered recently, and it might just be top of mind because we're interviewing people right now, but is managing our team from an interpersonal and cultural standpoint as we grow pretty rapidly.
All right, well, my name is Tara Beam, and my husband and I own the Roadhouse Diner, and how this came about is I'm actually a registered nurse, and I worked in Great Falls in the emergency department, and there are so many stories out there of life, death, all in between, but what it actually taught me is to embrace today. If today is your last day, have you done everything possible for yourself, for those around you, for those that work for you? So with that, my husband, who was in advertising and marketing, and some of you have his fun little cards he designed, it's like, my grandpa owned Young's Cafe, which was, it was the current Bert and Ernie's. It is now gone. Something new is coming in, I understand. And I said, you know what, you really want to open a restaurant? I'm like, oh my gosh, I can cook, I can do all that. We'll develop recipes. I'm like, we got this. So what I ended up doing is we developed it together. My intention was never to leave the emergency department. And we got it up and running. I would line 3 chairs up and sleep. I was a night shift nurse. I worked 7 on, 7 off, trying to do a business. And what happened, it was never my intention to leave the nursing world. I know I'm very directive with triaging. We got to get this. We got to problem solve in a nursing healthcare aspect. And I'm like, it's food. I made a mistake of saying, it's just food. Oh my gosh, it is not just food. I had to eat those words. It is so much more than that. So we had employees, I don't know, raise your hand, has an employee stole from you? Okay. That happened, and I'm like, all right, Mama Bear's going in the cabin. I remember walking in to Scott and saying, Scott, I'm putting in my 2-week notice. And he's like, what? I'm like, yes, I'm going to own a restaurant and work there. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I get in there and I just start doing what I know, directing, organizing, doing this. And I will be honest, the worst days of my life ever was opening day. And probably the following 2 weeks. We had done such a great job marketing ourselves, we underestimated what that would do to the community, that they were super excited. And honestly, we had failed in numerous things. So the challenge was growing so fast, not being prepared, and I underestimated the value of marketing. Anyway, so there's more stories that I'll share, but the challenge initially was marketing. As far as we'll get more into, I can talk to you more about how I go about with employees and whatnot, but there's part of my story.
Awesome. Well, I think I read somewhere that running a startup was a little bit analogous to jumping off a cliff and building an airplane on the way down. And, it's kind of that fun and exciting at first, but then also you're just fearful and overwhelmed really quickly. So I will say I've been 2 years now with my startup, and it's been all that and more. But the biggest challenge for me was really understanding, what was the timing? Experts say that startups succeed, kind of those 4 factors, your people, the innovative idea, the business marketplace, and timing. And really, timing has the greatest weight. And really working with so many human resource professionals and CEOs of companies in my career as an executive with EBMS, and then also leading a large workforce, it was never more apparent to me that businesses needed communications assistants to help attract and retain and engage their workforce and their customers. And so my 30-year career has really spanned lots of different industries in higher education and social work and professional services, and I just really felt that timing was right, despite the fact that I have 3 college-age students. Leaving a corporate job, with lots of, good perks and benefits was super scary, and, it continues to be. But, if you're looking to start a business, definitely timing would be the thing that was a challenge, but then also the opportunity.
I think it's interesting if you listen to the 3 stories. We had ultimate success and growth as a problem, over marketing, if you want to call it that. I don't mean that in a bad way. And I guess one of the things I'd love to ask is, that doesn't normally happen all the time. You don't go into business, start your own business, and then everything is great. In fact, the only problem you have is how quickly you're growing. A lot of times, sometimes that growth can be problematic in figuring out the Roadhouse. You guys have had a great run, obviously, and got some press, and I want you to comment. I want to come back to that in a minute, of that fast growth, because some of the companies, especially in Bozeman, some of the tech companies have had hyper growth, which it causes its own problems because you're growing so quickly. How do you keep up with that growth? How does an owner move from being part of the business and working day to day to actually having to manage, because there's a certain size when you have to now focus on that management? But can you talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the tougher times that you've had in your business where things weren't going 100%? You started up, everything's going great, but then things slowed down. And have you had that problem yet? Any of you? And if not, great, we'll move on.
I mean, I guess in our business, people think that, or I guess in most business, traditionally, first quarter is slow. And at AMS, first quarter is usually one of our highest revenue months because everyone's still continuing to wrap up what we were doing in fourth quarter to prepare for the next year. So March is traditionally a slow time for us. And about probably 3 or 4 years ago, March was a very slow time. And I think that the biggest thing, and I'll talk about this later, is how to learn from bad situations or difficult clients. And I think in that situation, one of the things we learned was that we have to be better prepared for knowing our seasonality and how that affects the flow and cash flow specifically, so that we can not have to scale back any of our efforts because we have a slow month, because we know the next couple months will be fruitful again, but being prepared for those slow months. And it's hard when you don't have that data. If you're, a newer business, you don't know when your slow months are going to be, so it's hard to prepare for that. But I think in a challenging time, what we've seen, because there have been quite a few of them, whether it's dealing with subcontractors or clients or employees, but learning from those situations would be like the silver lining, I guess, when you're not sleeping at night because you are so stressed and worried about your business. But the silver lining being learning from those situations. So I guess the cash flow in the slow months, knowing when those are and being prepared for them was probably a hard thing that we learned in like year 2 or 3. Yeah.
Well, and going off what Megan said, as we were talking about with all the other different sessions, is that during the summer we have a huge flux of tourists, and I had no idea how many tourists we had until you're out the counter and you're saying, hey, how did you hear about us? And they're like, oh, TripAdvisor, or we Googled and you're the best restaurant, or you were on Food Network with Guy Fieri, or I had no idea. So what has happened, during the slow time, so to speak. But what I also noticed is Great Falls, we just hosted a basketball tournament, which I didn't even know about. They're like, oh yeah, we're here for the basketball tournament. I'm like, go Great Falls, yes. And so then you get people from, as they were talking about yesterday, that the tourists, they consider if they're traveling from city to city, because I know I go to here we are in Helena right now, we go to different towns. So I am a tourist to your town. And so it has slowed down slightly. However, this is our time to regroup, where I rebuild to get ready for the boom times coming up, because we're going to be getting into tax returns are going to be coming back. Then we're going to be going into Easter. People come here for Easter. Then we're going to be going into spring break. And before you know it, we are in summertime again, and we are just running. So the slow time, this is the time just to really tighten it up, and we'll get into more of how I tighten up the team and whatnot. But
gosh, I haven't had the problem yet, but really, I think the thing that you've both alluded to is really, especially in a management consulting firm, we work with just a variety of contracts and different kinds of financial arrangements. And so certainly someone who has been kind of the primary breadwinner for my 25-year marriage, that was pretty challenging for my family to all of a sudden have these, kind of peaks and valleys with cash flows. So we spent 2 years prior to my decision to leave my position getting rid of personal debt. We're debt-free, and it really enabled me to just kind of jump off eyes wide open to just really be prepared. And I think the other thing that I did very intentionally was really limit the number of clients so that I could really do those kinds of projects that really carefully aligned with my strengths. And then also involved with community work. A little bit later I'm going to talk about one of the projects that I'm involved with, and I think our legislators kind of teed it up nicely. We have a huge need in Montana and beyond for training our workforce and strengthening employability skills and the soft skills. And so that's something that I've been super passionate about my entire career, and some of the added time that I have now in my business enables me to help Billings in that manner.
Thanks. So we've got three very different businesses: management consulting, marketing agency, and restaurateur. As you look at those businesses, all three of them, very similarly to probably most businesses in the state, have to compete against the big boys, right? Especially on the agency side of things. You've got some of the big agencies around the U.S. That can help out businesses from afar. Management consulting, especially, very difficult. You're dealing with the big four a lot of times, although you can typically beat them in price, but you still have a lot of national firms that are very competitive. And from a restaurant perspective, I mean, a local restaurant, you're dealing with the big box. You have the best burger. There's a lot of restaurants offering competitive products. How did you think about that and deal with that as you were starting up your business and saying, how are we going to market different? How are we going to strategize and sort of look at our market and specialize to be successful?
I guess that's what we're doing. In Bozeman specifically, AMS has a number of competitors. We primarily compete with two other agencies in town. And we have had more national opportunities, but it's hard for us to compete on price when we have to inevitably travel at some point, and traveling out of Bozeman can be extremely expensive in simply airfare. So we do struggle to compete on a national level, but that's not really our goal. As I mentioned before, we want to be the premier branding agency in our part of the nation, and so traveling to places like Helena, Jackson, down to Wyoming, across Montana, it tends to be a little bit more economical for our pricing, and then it also allows us to serve our communities a little better. So we start by focusing at home and then ripple out from there is kind of our goal. As far as how we differentiate within Montana agencies or Wyoming, Idaho agencies, we really want to, and this is something that we tell our clients all the time, it's important to run your own race. So figure out what you're good at, what you want to be doing ultimately, and where you can best serve in meeting your clients' goals in our world. So we want to focus on branding. It's where we're all passionate, and it's where we feel like we're the strongest. And then from there, it ripples into other services like websites, content marketing, digital marketing, really anything all the way down to environmental design. So we do a lot of designing the interiors of people's spaces so it matches their brand. When you see advertising, go to their website and come into their space, it's a consistent experience. And that really builds a lot of confidence and loyalty with your customer. So what we've done is specialize in branding, which has helped differentiate us. And then you mentioned partnerships earlier. We form partnerships with some of our competitors that want to do web, and they're really strong on web. So we collaborate a lot of the time. I think the biggest thing that differentiates AMS is that we have analyzed our competition, and we see where they are weak and where we are strong, and where we are weak and where they are strong. And we try to balance that all out. There's a lot of growth and business opportunity in the Gallatin Valley. As you guys know, it's wild. So we try and just differentiate ourselves through running our own race, being strong where we know we're strong, and filling our weaknesses with people who are strong. And our main goal that we always keep in mind is doing what's best for the client. It sounds kind of cliche, but I feel like we honestly do that, and our whole team has that perspective. So if that means giving up dollars so they get a better service with another company that's maybe not even in our competitive realm, but it's going to better serve their goals, then we're happy to facilitate that as much as we can. And I think that because of that stance, it builds that strong word of mouth and loyalty and trust of our integrity and how we do business. And I think that's another thing that differentiates us amongst any kind of competitors, is just how we do things.
Well, let's be honest. Your mothers are my competition. I mean, if you think about it, you're like, well, I'm just going to go to my mom's house tonight and have to, or maybe it's your dad. I mean, I shouldn't just insinuate that it's your mother. But what has really set us apart is just taking in really the nursing component as far as fresh food. Who knows about the Roadhouse Diner? Raise your hand if you're familiar. Okay, oh, we've got one in the corner, whole table there. Okay, so what we're known for is we actually get our meat in, we cut, and we grind it fresh in-house multiple times a day, because I know someone's like, just once a day, the same meat. I'm like, okay, that was funny. No. We also, our buns are scratch made daily with our own Roadhouse recipe. And we also make our fries in-house using potatoes from Manhattan, Montana. So my thing is everything is fresh, in-house made. My husband and I actually do our own grocery shopping. So I've got to get on the run. This is the most dressed up I ever get. Usually I'm in running shoes and carrying groceries and whatnot. I also make my own desserts. So every week I do Roadhouse Rumblers, I do pies, although sorry everybody, there won't be any desserts this week. But so setting ourselves apart just kind of, I guess, came naturally. From the time that my mom thought something was wrong with me, so I was spinal tapped because I was crying. I was probably not getting my way or something, just because I'm so different. But I've always wanted to make sure that what I give to you guys is something of a unique experience. It's not just about the burgers or the fries or the salad if you choose, or the burger bowl. It's about the whole experience, about you guys coming in. I want you to feel like you're probably younger than me. You're like my son, maybe? Brother, I don't know. You're a part of my family. You come on in, and that's with my wait staff. I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to eat delicious food, and I want you to leave there going, oh my gosh, I want to come back. Because you know what? That is what our tourists remember. This is what Malmstrom Air Force Base brings in our military, and they're like, you know what, Tara? We're going to miss the Roadhouse Diner. Actually, one of our customers, this little boy, he's about 2-3 years old. He goes, you're in our bathroom. And I'm like, I'm in your bathroom? And his grandma starts laughing, and she goes, oh, let me explain, please. I'm like, I'm in your bathroom? She goes, oh yes, I did that big picture that we took as a family last time I came and visited, and I made him a shower curtain. So you take showers with my family every day. And I'm like, so I'm laughing, but it is about those things with customers that they're like, can we get your picture? I mean, after I won the competition, people wanted my autograph, which I'm like, oh my gosh, this is humbling. But you know what? It's just about getting out there. Like, I really want to know each and everything about you. You might have interesting ideas for me to take on. But I don't know if you guys heard of the Cherry Bomb Burger. That's probably one of my favorite burgers that I created. In nursing world, we have the 5 senses. Well, I invoked this burger. So I used Pop Rocks. And those babies, there was one that even popped in someone's cheek. I'm like, ooh. Anyway, so then we also use a lot of Montana local ingredients. So with that one, I use the flathead cherries. So thank you, Flathead, and everyone, if there's someone here that grows them. We did, I actually had the guys make a cherry confit with that. But most recently, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tom and Jerry from the City Bar. So anyway, if you haven't, you should go in during the Christmas season. So he came in and he goes, Tara, remember that one time when you made cupcakes with our Tom and Jerry? I'm like, oh yeah. He goes, well, our business flourished as a result of that. He goes, can you make something else? And I'm like, yes. I have no idea what it's going to be, but yes, I will. So I ended up doing like a little caramel Tom and Jerry mix for cheesecake, and then I made the Tom and Jerry pie. I've also partnered up with our local authors in Montana, and most recently with Sydney George, who just went to Italy. I don't know if you know of Sydney George, but anyway, I made a couple of her recipes, had her in to sign books, and I've got a couple of people that are on the list that I need to read, and because I like to create products to support our Montanans, because I really do believe in Montana, and I am doing everything I can to get those people, to come on up, yes, Guy included. He's probably like, gosh, Tara, you are so annoying, I'll just come up just so you'll stop tweeting me. But anyway, what sets myself apart is just engaging. I'm there for you. I'm your nurse, I'm your counselor, I'm whatever you want to be, but I'm here for you guys.
Eric, I would like to go before Tara. No, really, I think one of the things that differentiates Connections is really, and really any business is, to really stay relevant in the marketplace, you need to be passionate about what you're doing. And you need to really always remember kind of two things. Why did you start the business in the first place? And what gap are you filling for your community, for those businesses, for the customers? And really, again, kind of back to my earlier comments, in my kind of, I keep saying my 30-year career, but I started when I was 10. So, but no, in my 30-year career, I really found that there was just this common, kind of red thread throughout all those organizations, and it was, they really struggled with the same issues, whether it was a college or nonprofits or a large business, even my Fortune 500 company right out of college, and that was communication. It was workforce engagement. It was attracting, the right kinds of customers, attracting the right workforce. And then the other piece that all the organizations seem to struggle with is that gap, the gap between strategy and execution. And that's really what Connections became. That's the brand of Connections, is kind of filling the communications between strategy and execution for individuals, for companies, and for communities. And so, I just really have just a burning passion, to kind of help improve status quo and well-being for, people and companies and communities. And so it's just been really easy to, go after and partner with companies and work with communities in order to grow my business and really feel, fulfilled in a career.
So it's interesting. We started a podcast about 6 months ago, and a couple of the topics that have come up we've spoken about is the micro moment economy. And I don't mean to keep mentioning Amazon, but Amazon has really changed the way that all business works. I mean, the idea is to gain trust, and how do you do that in as quick a moment as possible? And what's happened is Amazon can do that now without you ever talking to someone. You trust them 100%. You'll give them your money. You'll give them your time. You'll buy things from them because you expect anything goes wrong, you get on your phone, hit a button, and you get a return. That has changed the way we all have to do business, because the last time you do business in a certain way, that is the least expectation you have for the next moment. It's changed financial services. I'm assuming it's changed all of your businesses, and I listen to that sort of personal interaction. And that moves, we moved from sort of the customer service side of things into an AI, and we're about ready to do an interview with AI, because as financial services, I think Erica is the new banking assistant for Bank of America, and all of the financial services now are starting their own AI bots, and we're going to do an interview with these automated things to see how it comes out. And what's fascinating, and I listened to one theme across all of your answers, which was really about personalization in what you do. And as we compete with some of these bigger firms, that personalization gets lost. So I don't know how many of you have walked into a Home Depot lately, trying to find someone to help you in a Home Depot or a big box restaurant, and the service is a little bit different sometimes. You don't have that personalized service. And so maybe as we move into sort of the conversation around competing with these larger businesses, can you comment on how you're addressing that micro moment problem? Because as you're competing against these big management consulting firms or marketing firms or the restaurants out there, you have to do something different to keep them coming in. It's harder for me to go find your restaurant than it is to probably find the Outback down the street, or to go online and find a Big Four consulting firm. So how do you work with that, other than the personalization side of things, in trying to attract those customers to even get to talk to them in the first place? So that's a big problem. I mean, you mentioned travel in Montana, right? I mean, even to do it nationally, we have to travel a minimum of 2 hours to go to the next city. So how does that work nationally, statewide and nationally, I guess?
I'm going to kind of piggyback on something that Leanne just touched on, and it's something that AMS works on as well, and it's the gap between strategy and execution. So thinking about our business or the clients we work with, you have to be true to who you are, and that's where it starts with the strategy. So like you mentioned Home Depot. I would almost guarantee, and I don't know this for sure, but one of Home Depot's brand pillars is probably not connection, or they might say customer service, but it's not defined enough for their employees to understand how to execute that. And so looking at strategy to execution, I think that's one of the big things when you're looking at how you're competing is you have to be true to yourself. There's a lot of data out there about the next generation, Generation Z. They are basically using smartphones in the womb, and then they come into the world and they're really wanting authenticity. And in order to connect with the next level of customers, you have to be true to who you are, and that way when they come in, they'll also connect with you if they're the right customer for you. And so that's what we try and do at AMS is we go through our own branding process, we test it on ourselves, and it starts with strategy and then it goes to design. So it's what's the strategy behind how we're doing things in our business? What are our customers worried about? What are the hurdles? How do we want them to feel? Who are we? How do we sound? We're defining all of those things and then training our employees on them as well. So then when we go into design, we have to be able to visually communicate that, which goes into the marketing and competing. We visually communicate who we are, and we're choosing fonts and colors and images that match our strategy. And then through the marketing, we're doing the same thing all the way down to when they call us and come in the door. It's that consistency that I mentioned a minute ago that it's lacking, and Leanne definitely hit this, where it's the gap between strategy and execution. And so looking back at like Home Depot, for example, to stay with your example, you have to be true to who your strategy is and then train appropriately. So I'm sure all of you have gone into a business and you go to engage with them and you see an ad online or something on Instagram, or you hear something through word of mouth, you go to their website or you call and you go in the door, and the experience is different. And it's usually because of that engagement. And so with digital and AI, you can have a similar engagement as you would with a person, but it's more about setting the expectation and then managing that expectation through how you want that experience to be. And so I think that's one thing that we really hold tightly when we're looking at our own marketing. How do we differentiate ourselves or our clients, and how do we compete? It's more about just being true to that strategy and then executing it properly.
I'm going to jump in. It's an interesting question, and I'd love to ask actually the audience a quick question. I think there was 50 to 60% relatively small business ownership. Strategy is an interesting topic, and it spans an entire business all the way through culture, interestingly enough. And how many of you started with a strategy, and then at the end of the year you realized, we didn't really work that. Let's do a new strategy. And every year you keep putting together new strategy by hands. Anybody gone through that? That's impressive if you've all stuck with your strategy, because I think in small businesses especially, we start with a strategy and then we keep folding that strategy up. We don't pay attention to it. And it's such an important piece of business, from developing whatever culture you're going to have, but you have to be flexible in that strategy as well, because markets change. And so as we continue that question, I love that answer, and I think let's keep on that theme a little bit and talk about that strategy. Your strategy as far as the Roadhouse, it had to change along the way, but you had a core strategy and it's continued.
Yes, initially, and going back to Amazon actually has a food delivery place now. So I'm like, I got to check this out. My daughter is going to law school in Phoenix, or the Phoenix area. So I sent her, I'm like, okay, now tell me, what was the time? How long did it take to deliver? Was the food warm? I know the price. I know the tip. I know the service fee. I want pictures. I want to see how it was packaged. I bought beverages. I could take a look at the beverages because I had to assess the situation. And then everything that I would encourage you to do with your businesses, assess your situation and reassess your situation. What are you doing? What is your strategy? So with that, my daughter loved the food, which is wonderful because it was like $50. And I was able to look at that and say, you know what, this is still the strategy that we want to go. We actually started off as breakfast and dinner, and we closed it too. And it was because of our customers. Water glasses. I had these thinking 8 ounces would be all right for water glasses. I got slammed on social media with the Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google Your Business. They're like, Tara, we don't want a shot glass, we want water. So I'm like, okay, you've got it. We have got 21 ounce glasses now. enjoy, right? But so my strategy changed because I listened to the feedback. People were like, your burgers are so delicious. Those French fries. And I'm like, well, yeah, but what about the breakfast bombers? They're like, it's breakfast. I'm like, what? It's breakfast? I'm like, okay. So the feedback that I was getting was people really wanted us for our burgers. In no way, shape, or form did I ever think we would be known as, someone called us a gourmet burger place. It was set up for breakfast and lunch. We rechanged the plan from the original business plan because I listened to everyone, because I think if you shoo that off and don't listen to them, you're only going to hurt yourself. What do you want? Okay, you got it. You're going to get burgers and fries. We actually extended our hours to go to 8:30 p.m. So how we work it now, Monday, Tuesday, we're closed. Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 8:30, we do burgers and fries. And then on Sundays, we've got the breakfast bombers. So we have breakfast only on Sundays. So as far as strategy for keeping it different, engaging, sometimes I'll make homemade biscuits for biscuits and gravy. It's just always having something fun. I don't even know. If you go on our Facebook, there's videos out there. I'm singing. I mean, there's so much out there that people laugh. I want you guys to laugh at me too. It's okay. Like, oh my gosh, did you just see what Tara did? I've been known to break out into a dance, and now I've trained my staff to do the same thing. Because you know what? When they see staff that enjoy their job, it's easy. It makes it easy. I mean, I left for a week, and it was almost like I had not even been gone. I went home and was like patting myself on the back. Because really, when you're a business owner, nobody is there saying, here's a gift card, great job. You have to do it to yourself. You have to do your own happy dance, so to speak. But anyway, I know my strategy is a little bit different than the ladies, but it's always assessing the situation, because people change, time changes, and sometimes your business strategy has to change.
Again, this is really tough to follow, but so strategy for me really, I guess, first started with talking with 4 or 5 really trusted industry colleagues who had done the same thing. Kind of left their corporate executive job to start a consulting practice, and kind of learn about what I wish I would have done, and what you absolutely have to do. And so that kind of became a litmus for me in kind of developing that strategy. The other things is I'm really a believer that I lead through my strengths, and when others are in a position where they can lead through their strengths, we can kind of work more seamlessly and create better outcomes. And so what I did was I spoke with a gal who's, she's an engineer by training. She's, really, really focused on operations and metrics and, measures of success. And so, very, very different. I'm very strategic and, just kind of that, let's just take the idea and let's go do it. So she helped me kind of get grounded and really build that framework for kind of my first year plan and my second year plan, really bringing a different lens on how I was going to look at things. And so, I really encourage you, if you don't already do this with your senior leadership team, but definitely, bring others into developing your business strategy. They'll help you look at things differently. They'll help you, come up with, different ideas and even challenge you to set, maybe a little higher bar than what you had set for yourself. So
that leads us into a fascinating topic. We at pretty much most of the room at this age have always watched businesses develop through pretty much traditional marketing, right? And I mean, it's moved from press and publications to digital realms. But as we've, in the last couple of years, Megan mentioned, our children with their phones, and influencer marketing has become a challenge to the norm of how we market anything. And I love Tara. She's obviously grasped onto that and dancing on social media, and people are watching that and they're saying, hey, I can relate, right? That I trust that person. I want to do business with that person. The other 2 businesses up here are more B2B. So B2C is really where influencer marketing has taken off over the last couple of years. It hasn't as much in B2B, but it is starting. And we've actually just launched into that realm. I was just at a conference down in Phoenix, and it was fascinating. Budweiser was down there. Now that's another B2C, but Microsoft, which does some B2B2C, and they have grasped onto the influencer marketing side of things to where they've got departments, 200-300 people. They're hiring these influencer marketings to market their products. You mentioned that. How has that changed trying to compete in that world with those customers? I mean, obviously, that age generation, we'll come back to that in a minute as far as hiring and bringing people into the executive team and ideas, because I really believe the multi-generational teams can be far more beneficial than these older exec teams sometimes. But how have those marketing challenges changed how you do business, and have you launched into sort of the differentiation of marketing techniques in your strategies to compete?
Leanne, do you want to go first for a change? Okay.
I'd love to go first. So I'm very active on social, and I was probably one of the first in Montana to be on LinkedIn. You know, it was kind of one of those things where I feel that platform has been able to associate my brand with some of the right experts to help specifically grow my line of work. That we do a lot of event marketing, where you're really telling that customer's story and you know, not selling products, but you know, selling products because you're positioning the value proposition through events. And so with that, I regularly align with influencers on LinkedIn. And so once they're tagged and they're commenting, our posts now for connections are seen by 6,000 CEOs and owners of businesses. And so a lot of I still don't have a website. I've done all of our business through referrals from people in our network, and we're expanding into Texas, some different physician practice groups and some colleges and universities. So I think the point is that influencer and influencer marketing can really give your business legs and your marketing efforts legs. So whether you're B2B or B2C, definitely work it into your content strategy.
Well, these ladies have way more knowledge in that than I do, but what I do know is, as far as influencers, I mean, every foodie, in my mind, you are all influencers. So I have to take you to help work with me, not for me, but with me. And sometimes it could be varying on, I don't know if Stacy's in here, but we have some good jokes because she's like, Tara, there's that fine line of that inappropriateness and appropriateness. And you play with that inappropriateness. And they're like, that's nasty. I'm like, is it? It just depends on what way you want to go with it. Because you always want to keep it fun and engaging. And as far as influencers, sometimes things happen that you're creating and you're going, and you're like, whoa, what is going on? One case in particular, I don't know if did you guys hear about the Commander in Beef? Okay, so President Trump was supposed to come to Great Falls, Montana, and I'm like, whoa. I would love the president, I don't care who you are, I would love the president of the United States of America to come to the Roadhouse Diner. I was doing, and Shane can attest to me, I was doing everything I could to get the Commander in Beef in hand. What I didn't know what would happen, again, coming from a nursing world, this is a little bit different in the business world, was the hate mail. I'm a disrespectful, small female business owner. I'm like, what? I'm here to sell burgers. What do you mean? And I remember my husband, I don't know, how many of you work with your spouse? Okay, there's a learning curve to that. So anyway, that's another topic we'll talk about next session. So he comes and he's like, Tara, we got to pull it. And I'm telling you, this generated so much chatter. And it actually made the national news as well. And I'm like, no. I'm standing firm. We are not pulling this burger. I did not serve for the United States of America in the military to have a few people who are like, oh, I don't want the president here, to have this effect on our business. I said, no. I sat there and he's like, oh, okay, we are not going to pull it. The Commander-in-Chief almost did not happen, but I'm like, it is going to happen. And I told my girls in here, there were rumors of protesting. I'm like, bring it on, let's do it, let's hand them water bottles. Because it's okay for your voice to be heard. However, this is a business. And why are we in business? We're here to make money. We're here to make people happy. We're here to give people new experiences. And let me tell you, that day was one of the most amazing days ever in the history of Roadhouse Diner. It brought in Matt Rosendale. We had, the TV crews there. I left and actually went to the rally and learned so much about politics. I was like, what is Drain the Swamp? I didn't realize how much I did not know. I have been so educated since that time. I'm like, oh wow. I've been so busy baking and cooking that sometimes I lost all this political, and I was drawn into it just by chance. But those girls had one of the best days ever. And some people didn't know who I was because I was sitting in the VIP section. I heard them talking about the Roadhouse. Did you hear about the Roadhouse? So when you talk about influencers, this happens when you're just doing your normal everyday job. And we tried to get Alabama in. If Jeffree Star was in Bozeman, I mean, does anyone know who Jeffree Star is? Okay, well, he might, oh, yes. Well, anyway, I don't know. I won't say what I said to tweet him to try and get him to Great Falls, Montana, but all I know is that I really wanted Jeffree Star there, and you probably know what I said, so now you'll be like, who's Jeffree Star? Anyway, it isn't about do you follow them, do you not. When you hear that they're coming, I want them in Montana, I want them in Great Falls, and I want them talking. #influencers.
I think that's really true. I think that anybody that engages with your business can be an influencer, and I think it's really fun to challenge people on where their comfort level is with how they engage with your business. Influencers is, I guess this might be a little bit of my soapbox, but yesterday I had a call from a woman, and she has a small business in Bozeman, and she wants to do digital marketing because she heard that digital marketing is, what she needs to be doing. She's like, online advertising, everyone's talking about SEO. She didn't even know what that stood for. She just was like, I need SEO. So, you have all these buzzwords, and I think influencer can be one of them, where you have to be careful of where you spend your marketing dollars and that marketing mix. And I think influencers play a very large role in that. And I think it's appropriate to identify who's an appropriate influencer and get their support and really engage with them on that connection level and make sure that they are in line with your strategy and executing your brand voice appropriately. But I think that they can make a really big impact. We work with a number of bloggers who are paid influencers for different businesses, and it really does have an impact. Like, people want to go to Roadhouse because Guy was there, It's like, oh.
Not yet. I'm working on that. Oh, my microphone's off.
Oh, they cut you off. Use my
That's okay.
Just kidding.
That wouldn't be the first time I was cut off.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, the people want to go and be where these people are. And so it definitely holds weight. But I would say everything is relative, and everything needs to be in balance and moderation in the way that it works for your business. And so for AMS, we don't necessarily have influencers. We have, our clients are influencers, but we don't necessarily engage with different business people to have their voice ripple back to our company. But I think that that's definitely something that as we grow and want to break into new markets, that will be very impactful for us.
Well, if I can go back into what Megan, am I cut off? Oh, okay. And going back to what Megan said is, I think it's important for us all, I'm going to group us all to realize that we too are influencers. I've seen that businesses come into me for their help as well because they know that we've been successful in this area. So we all are influencers as well.
It's a great point, and I think the other piece of that puzzle is, as Megan mentioned, we found this too, is a lot of people think from the influencer and the change in how people are marketing businesses, but there has to be a strategy behind it, and you have to find the right people, and you have to engage those people the right way, and it can be as expensive, if not more, sometimes than traditional marketing. So as we move sort of out of the creation of the business, the strategy, the marketing, competing with some of the larger players, Probably one of the toughest issues that's talked about regularly in the state is staffing from a perspective of finding, retaining, and then motivating. Because I was just at another talk a couple months ago talking with the universities, and we're in the tech business. And we appreciate that the schools are pushing out coders. There's a lot of code schools that are pushing out coders, and they're great coders. But what they don't have is an understanding of business. And so we're going back to the schools saying, hey, tell them why they're coding. Tell them why they're doing these things, because otherwise we're just getting pieces of the puzzle. We're not getting the whole gamut. From that perspective, all the way through, at least in Bozeman, you mentioned, it's a booming economy. We've got a lot of tech businesses in town, and it becomes very incestuous. Oracle hires from us, and then PFL, and then we hire back, and it just kind of keeps a circle going. It's difficult to keep and retain employees, and the problem with that continual change is we keep having to pay them more. Well, by the time they get back to us, the salaries increased 20%. It's been 2 years. And so how do you keep up in a market where there isn't a huge plethora of workforce? A lot of outside talent comes into the state, to the two universities. They get trained, and then they leave. So how, we're working with some of the universities to say, can we keep that talent in state? But from a business perspective, it's difficult. And I'd also love you to touch on the fact, culture. Culture is a big thing that is overlooked because there's not a direct ROI that can be associated with it. You can't turn around and say, well, let's implement culture this year and we're going to get a 10% boost to revenues or a 10% reduction in expenses. Culture is something that's long outstanding. But as we're working and competing against some of the bigger companies out there, you've got the Googles, 35-day work weeks now, unlimited vacation. Interestingly enough, you ever want to have a conversation about unlimited vacation, it's an interesting policy because people actually take less vacation, but we can talk about that later. But it's interesting as to how we compete from a business perspective in the state of Montana because we don't have those kinds of revenues. We don't have that bucket to turn around and say, well, we're going to do this differently. So how do you compete? Do you have those problems? And maybe give us an idea of how you address the staffing issue from finding, keeping, and retaining, or retaining and motivating.
Do you want me to go first? Want to start first? I can go first. I can go first. I know lots of words. The restaurant industry. Who has worked in it? Who still works in it? Yes, I got one. There we go. So we actually have done very well from the beginning of opening. Now I have 12 employees, and because we prefer to have full-time employees just so we can help them with their livelihood versus doing part-time. We do part-time, but I do have some of our staff, they are attending college, although I think the College of Terra should suffice, but no. Anyway, so we still have, from the get-go, I have 4 people out of that 12 that are still with us today. We actually moved, this is how dumb I was in the beginning. I didn't think we needed a dishwasher because we weren't going to be that busy. Anyway, promptly hired a dishwasher, and he is now one of our line cooks, and he will run the show. One of them was from one of my nurse friends. It was her son. I did have the benefit because I did work in the community, and when they heard I was opening a restaurant, they're like, hey, you need to go talk to Tara, she can be tough to work for, but once you learn the rules and what the expectations are, it's a great ride. So as far as finding, a lot of times it's by word of mouth. Sometimes it is by customers because they've been in before, because everyone thinks they can be a server. Speaking of on servers, is there Angie, the premier Best Western? Sir, can you grab me Angie, please? Thank you. Yes, you are. I'm looking for Angie here, and we're proud of you. Good job. So sometimes it's by customers. I'm going to show you Angie here in a minute. I've been watching. And sometimes they don't come back the next day. Sometimes I'll say, Tara, I had no idea how hard this is. You guys make it look so easy. Sometimes it's by Indeed. Sometimes it's on Facebook. Sometimes it's me going, hey, Angie, you're a great server. Sometimes it's like that. I actually don't have any job openings at this time, but anyway, you'll see when she walks in. So finding, those are some different little areas. Word of mouth, Indeed, Facebook. There's Angie. Everyone, can you look at Angie? I watched her this morning serving all of us, and look at that beautiful smile, because you know what? A smile is free, and that's all it takes. So thank you, Angie, for making my morning. Oh, you weren't my server. Anyway, he's cute. So anyway, those are kind of the ways that I find it. I really like the ones that are the ones that say, you know what, they know who I am, and they go, hey, Tara, so-and-so wants a job. Do you want to try him out? Where it can be a problem is if they don't work out. I've always said that, just because it doesn't work at the Roadhouse does not mean that they're a bad person. They're just not the right fit for the job that I want. What I'm looking for in a person, whether it's a porter, the dishwasher, whether it's a cook, whether it's a server, can I train this person? Are they trainable? Will they follow me? Because I've got lots of experience. And we were talking in yesterday's session about the technology, the part of it, or just even today they were talking about like a home ec. Are they going to follow directions? Will they be able to follow me as their leader? Will they respect me to follow me? The answer is not all the time, and it doesn't work out. And I can usually figure it out, usually the first day. I mean, and honestly, have you guys, who interviews here? Interviews? Okay. If someone is late, do you interview them? I don't either. I'm like, if they're late for an interview, something is wrong. You know what? They're going to just continue to be late. And I always use the analogy. I said, you know what? If I was your trauma nurse and I didn't show up and you died because I had to go get a latte, is that okay? I'm like, no, that is not okay. If you are on time, you are late. You need to be on time. So when my staff they start to work with me, they're like, oh my gosh. But then they were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome to work with Tara. We've got rules and we follow them, and everything flows so much better when we have rules to follow. And we also, it's important for all of us as employers to lead by example. You know what? I'm like, if you can't clean a toilet, you can't do anything. I will go in there, I will glove up, and I will clean a toilet. I mean, Lord knows how much I've cleaned up. You nurses know GI bleeds are not fun. C. diff, no way. But you know what? It's going in there with your employees and doing it with them and showing them your expectations. Because if you just say, go clean a bathroom, and you're like, oh, it's horrible. If you don't actually go in there and say, you know what? This is what I found to work really well. And the rationale basis behind this is this. So then they get to clean the bathroom the whole week, and I get to assess their skills and reassess. And then before long, those bathrooms are clean, because nobody likes to go into a dirty bathroom, right? Nobody. So as far as I've gotten into finding how I do that, how I bring them in, how I engage them, and this really is a whole probably topic about employees, with how to find them and train them. And so now going into retention, what do I do? Number one, I do know that, the state increased the minimum wage now. The only one, our servers get minimum wage because they're a tip position. But the other ones, we hire them at a higher rate. And then when they prove that they are a good worker, then that goes up. Some other little things that I've done, I had no idea I'd become a counselor. I would become a bank, because I would, sometimes just give them money, sometimes loan it to them. But some things that I have done is talk to them about health care. When they say they don't have insurance, I'm like, well, why? You can go get health care yourself. You don't have to have an employer to get that for you. Go get a plan. Let's talk about it. A lot of people don't know what is an EOB, what is a deductible. I mean, they don't understand that because it's not something that is taught. It's something that we all should know about, but we don't. So as a nurse, as I've been a healthcare provider, I do feel that it is my priority to actually teach them, not expect them to know. And it was interesting. I just had one of my little gals. She goes, well, my dad, just talking about high deductibles versus they don't understand the difference. So if you can the young ones, really a high deductible and a lower payment is all right. Talking to what's an HSA account, they don't even know what that is. So I'm teaching them. As far as, we even had one of my employees, he had a heart attack at the age of 36 years old, no insurance. He was at benefits, racked up bills of $120,000. Didn't tell me about it until he went to collections. So he's in collections, all of his money is gone. So I'm going to tell you a mistake I made, okay? I gave him $1,000. I said, go get, here's a little bonus for you to go get a bankruptcy attorney and to get this worked out. He went and bought video games. My learning opportunity was this last year. I actually got a hold of the attorney myself and gave them the payment and said Merry Christmas. That was my mistake, that you entrust because of financial management. I failed to go, they don't always know financial management. I worked in a time where I didn't even realize that people would hand out money. I thought you just had to work hard and earn it. And I had no idea. So anyway, trying to teach them financial management as well. Someone needed help with a car, I'll loan them the money. Just doing little things like that. Wedding gifts. I give them little gift cards every now and again. We go for a pedicure. It's those little things that make a big difference. We do donut Sundays sometimes before breakfast. The little things matter a lot. So anyway, this could be a whole day topic, but that's what I found in the restaurant industry.
Gosh, now I know how you feel, Leanne. Our business is a lot different than Leanne's, and we have a similar struggle that was mentioned when you're talking about training people or hiring people coming out of college. One of the things that we do at AMS is we work with the College of Business and the design school at MSU, Montana State University out of Bozeman, because we're finding a similar thing where people are coming out of learning about something they're passionate about, like graphic design, for example, but they don't understand the marketing side or how to apply it or how to problem solve using graphic design skills. And so one of the things that we do kind of on a higher level is working with students that are coming out of these programs to give them opportunities to learn real world skills and applications. Another thing that we do at AMS as far as hiring, I agree with what Tara said, we're always looking at personality. When we hire, a lot of times it is word of mouth. We talk to different people in the community and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, through Prospera or the chamber, and figure out if they know anybody that's looking. If we do have to put a job out, we tend to just use social media. And one of the things that we found is that we spend a lot of money on our own branding through blogging, email marketing, social media. Those are our primary channels, and we've created an appeal. AMS is, I would like to think, right here, it's like my own world of AMS, but I'd like to think that we have created a place where people want to work, and that's based on feedback that we've heard. Our most recent hire, Aaron Corsi, we have two Aarons at our office, and we can't call them old Aaron and new Aaron because the older Aaron doesn't appreciate that. So we call her Corsi by her last name, and she loves it. And but when she was applying at AMS, she was actually in the process of transitioning to move to Seattle for a graphic design position. She was that prime example of what Eric talked about, where they are from Montana, they go to school here, but then they have to go somewhere else to get a job that they want. And she actually interviewed with us, and when got the position at AMS, she decided to stay in Montana because she wanted to be here and she really wanted to work at our company. And that was very flattering and encouraging for me as a business owner to hear that someone really wanted to work with us, where they changed their whole trajectory of their career to be able to stay and work at our company. So I think part of retaining or getting employees is just making your company attractive, and that's through what they see through your marketing, what they hear through clients, and what they see through your employees. So once we hire someone, the biggest thing that I've learned, and this might just be me anyways, I come from a very large family, so communication isn't optional. It's like not a question. Like it's just what happens. It's always loud. And I think that's kind of instilled in me communication. So for our employees, when they start, we ask them questions like, how do you learn the best? How do you like to be appreciated? Like, what are your hurdles? What do you want to grow in your career or in your personal life? And then we help empower those skills. And I think that goes towards our customer or employee retention, because they feel valued or investing in their continuing education. They feel like they've been heard because they see our actions like appreciating them the way they want to be appreciated. And it's always about them, and it's so much less about us. And then we do some things to maintain that. So we do, every 3 months, we sit down with each employee individually, me and my business partner as a leadership team. The other thing that we do is every Friday morning, we pick a different team member, and it's on a rotating schedule, and we sit down for 15 minutes and just chat with them. And some of the best little gold nuggets come out of those 15-minute chats, because it's an opportunity to not talk about projects, but how are you doing? How do you feel like your week's been going? Like, what do you need from us? You know, are you struggling with something? Is there a client you feel like needs extra attention? It's all about like them and their engagement with the company and clients, and it's a really cool way for them to just have an opportunity to have a voice. You know, as a business owner that you are going all day long, nonstop, and you don't always have those moments to pay attention to those feelings or those small little voices in your head that are like, oh, you should pay attention to this, or oh, you should see this or hear that. You're just trying to get through your day a lot of the time. So it's so much more about them, but it also carves out that time for you to hear them. So there's a few things we've done like that. I think the biggest thing that I'm pretty excited about for 2019 is we naturally I Googled, right, computer, I Googled like employee perks, and there was this list of 10, and I took some out that I knew we just couldn't do, and then I sent the list to the team, and I said, hey, we had a really good year, we met our sales goals, we want to invest back in you guys, here's a list of 10 perks that we want to know what you want. I mean, just simply communicating with your team about what they want out of their job, and almost all of them had the same top 3 list, and it was really interesting. It was healthcare, which is number 1, so I'm really excited and proud that we can offer our employees a really quality health plan in 2019. And then they wanted continuing education, which we already do, so that's great. We send them to any kind of trainings or leadership conferences, really kind of anything they want, even if it's a book on Amazon, we'll buy it, or at the local bookstore. And then the third thing was food and beverages in the office. And I was like, I could do all of these things for you. I'm like, I will gladly buy you food and drinks. And so we have this new office, and we have a little kitchenette. And so every couple weeks, there's a running grocery list, and I'll go get whatever they want for the grocery list and stock the office for them. So I think by just asking the question and listening to your employees, you can really quickly figure out how they feel valued and what they want, and that will do wonders for your employee retention. We have one employee that's been with us since the very beginning. She was our first hire. Her name is Devin, if you guys know AMS, and she is like the glue of our organization. And she is constantly moving into different positions. She fills the gaps we need, whether it's project management, social media management. She does Squarespace websites for us. She is a photographer. We utilize her skills in photography, a graphic designer, and she's very wide-reaching in her skill set. And recently we just said, hey, Devin, you've been with us so long. We've been moving you around all over the company for the past 5 years. Like, what do you want to do less of, and what do you want to do more of? And we were able to hear her in that and push her where she wants to go, and also educate her in the area she wants to move towards. And it works for us, and it works for her. So I would just say, as far as finding employees, hire people that you feel will be a good fit with your culture. As far as retaining them, ask questions, listen to them, and do what you can do and be honest about that. And then, if you do have an employee that has to leave, we had one of those, and try and facilitate their career, because sometimes working at your company is a huge deal for them, and sometimes it's an in-between to something greater they should be doing. So being open-minded about helping them facilitate their own career, I think is really valuable for our business community. Yeah.
Lynn-Ann, I might shorten this just a little bit. I want to open up to questions.
No, you're good.
But
I don't think there's much more to offer.
Well, it's interesting. I think a number of points came to light where we're in an age right now I'm assuming that in each of your businesses, we have 4 generations sometimes working on teams, and they're all motivated very differently. They all work for different reasons. And I think, the communication piece. I've got a team, everybody talks badly about millennials. I say grab on, because you better understand what they're thinking, what they're doing, and what they're buying, because they're the next realm. And so, bringing them onto your team. But their work ethics, the way that they work, their motivations are very different than the baby boomers. And I've got a couple of those on the team as well. And so that communication, I think, is absolutely key in understanding that career progression. And the other thing that I've found too is, and I think somebody mentioned, fail fast. Because that one bad team member can destroy a larger team very quickly. I want to open it up to questions from the audience. Is there any?
Well, boy, people formulate one, if it's okay, if I may ask one.
Which one's
Dan
that?
Burnell with the Montana Chamber. I also own a little software company called Incumbent. I was wondering, one of the things that we're trying to do as a chamber is making sure that businesses, when they start up, have the resources they need to grow. What's one resource you wish you had, or one thing that you wish you had when you started your business?
I don't know necessarily that I would say that we were lacking. Billings has gotten a couple of really nice nods, at least in the last year, of a top 10 city for starting a new business. A couple of different publications gave us those nods, and I just really point to our local chamber and our Big Sky Economic Development Authority. Both organizations really offer just a breadth of training for new business owners, resources, small business loans, grant assistance, and just, a whole gambit of services. I'm a chamber member. I work very closely with the Big Sky EDA on a number of projects, and I think too often, and what we're finding even with this project that we're working with the schools and area businesses in order to improve workforce training and employability, is that most oftentimes people just don't know that the resources exist, or they just need that person to, take them by the hand and get them to the right place. And so I would just really encourage any business owner or people exploring to go out on their own to check out your local resources.
All right, another question.
Actually, it's not a question, it's more of a statement, I guess, and I commend you there for the tenacity that you have and moving your business forward. I kind of looked at your situation. I probably was in that neck of the woods at one point. I was a tribal leader and chairman of my tribe for about 16 years, and we're seeing the product of being dependent on the United States government and what they're going through right now. I don't have to worry about that. The business that I'm doing, we employ about 21 people. We've created a cultural resource management firm out of iResponse. I've got 3 archaeologists on staff. 2 of the students are University of Montana grad students. One is specializing in our ground penetrating radar that we have. We also have a drone that accompanies that. My point is being in a little place called Rocky Boy, Montana. The area that we have, iResponse owns that, not the tribe. And if there's any consensus as to who we are, what we are, we're not dependent on my tribe or any tribe. What we're doing is being dependent on ourselves and providing a service. When you talked about your business, I looked at that and what I'm faced with. I never realized in my life I was going to be a capitalist Indian, but I am now, I guess. But a lot of people that I employ, I average about 3 mouths that they have to feed. And we're dealing with about 300 and some odd companies in a 13-state area. It got to the point the Eastern Shoshone tribe in Wyoming asked us to do the same thing for them, so we are. So But what I find here in Montana is there really a place for me? And that's why I'm here, I guess, with the Montana Chamber of Commerce, and I'm trying to figure out how I could meld in, because I want to expand, and I see the business opportunities that are out in Indian country, and I don't know if the Indian country's ever been involved, because I only look at myself and my ranching operation. I have to go 41 miles one way to get diesel for my tractors and my vehicles. I've got to go 38 miles the other way, Big Sandy or Havre, to get fuel, because we don't have anything in that geographical area. So the opportunity that there is for me to provide employment is there, and I want to thank whoever is sponsoring. I guess it's this organization for having this. I'm certainly learning a lot. So if I can be of any assistance, we do have a website, www.iresponse106.com, and we do a lot of cultural surveys of construction areas that are receiving federal monies. We're able to go there and clear the area. We've done about 20,000 cell tower projects from Pennsylvania this way, and cleared them for industry. So with that, thank you. Hi.
So I might chime in
Thank you.
to address both of you, the original question. And I think being a Montana native, bounced around the world, came back, and I think it's really about involvement and asking questions and getting involved. Sometimes we get so caught up in our own businesses and our own lives that we forget to get involved. We don't depend on the chamber for our business just because all of our clients are national. There's no Montana clients. We have one small one. But just getting involved with the chamber. And from the chamber side, I love the fact they reached out and they provided information that I didn't know. And I think it's really about, we do business in Montana. We're entrepreneurs in Montana, and it's really about getting involved outside of your comfort zone and getting involved from an informational perspective. And then if you feel strongly about something, get involved. That voice is important on both sides, I think so.
I think we have time for one quick question. Anyone? Going once, twice.
Great. Well, thank you for allowing me to be up here and be a moderator. Thank you to our panelists. That was wonderful. Appreciate that.